All across the country, our leaders are having a discussion about pretrial supervision. I think it's time we join them. Nationwide, the process of pretrial release is under attack by groups claiming things they just cannot prove to be true. And in the process, they're causing great damage to America's proven methods and public safety. Locally and nationally, True Pretrial Supervision is a vocal advocate for criminal justice system, and it's being accountable to the people who fund it, the taxpayer, by ensuring that public safety is the first priority when deciding changes to pretrial release. Unaccountable, taxpayer-funded third parties advocating the concept of no money bail forget there are only two things a human truly possess: his word and his property. What happens when their word is no good? Offenders should carry the cost, not the taxpayer. Pretrial release supervision is a serious public safety issue. Changes to it cannot be based on discussions that do not include responsibility and accountability as cornerstones of the final product. To attack and attempt to destroy the only responsible and accountable form of pretrial release supervision is reckless and will cause great damage to the criminal justice system and public safety. What is pretrial supervision? Pretrial supervision in America is something that is a product of a person who is arrested and put in jail for a charge. And while in jail, the system takes a look at them and, based on their charges and based on their history, sets a means for the defendant to get released from jail pre-trial. Their level of supervision could be anything from nothing, they just get let go, to ankle monitoring or even kept in jail. Pretrial supervision is any form of release pre-trial that's supervised. And it could be any type of release. If you're released on your own, you're supervising yourself. If you fail to appear, the court will increase the level of supervision. If you have a serious charge, your level of supervision will be even higher, straight off the bat. The discussion about pretrial release has to do with how people should be released. And there are a group of people who believe in America that people are stuck in jail pre-trial simply because they are poor and cannot afford their bail. And that's not actually true. First of all, most people in America who go to jail, and they are low risk, non-violent, first-time type offenders, these people get released. They get let go. Nobody holds them. The people who are being kept pre-trial are the ones who pose greater risk. As a person's risk goes up, their bond goes up. Now, what is risk? Risk is based on their charges, based on their history. I mean, a person who is in the court system understands that the longer they're there, the more risk they are. I mean, the more times you find yourself in the system, the higher risk you pose. So that's first. I mean, a history of coming and going to jail, misdemeanors, felonies, your risk goes up. A person who comes to jail once and has never been there before, their risk can be high depending on their charge. If they have a charge that is serious, stabbing, robbery, something truly felonious, they would probably have a high bond. But they can also get caught in, the reactionary part of our society where people will, domestic violence. It wasn't important until the O.J. Simpson case, when law enforcement decided it was time to no longer let a victim have a say. It makes sense. But what's happened is you have a mentality now that every time a policeman shows up at a house for domestic violence, they come with the attitude that someone's going to jail. And these cases are sometimes taken way more serious because on the one or so freak occasions that somebody actually goes and kills their whole family, nobody wants to get caught in that storm. So they create this undercurrent where everybody gets caught in it, and it gets very difficult because there's a whole lot of special things attached to domestic violence. There's stay-away orders. I mean, it's one thing to get caught with a stolen car. When you get out, there's no real restrictions. But when you get caught with a domestic violence, you can't go home. I mean, there's so many different things that affect you, and it can destroy a person because they have no means, and they have no defense because the state is the only witness. So these people find themselves suffering from bigger bonds. But are they really the criminal we should be after? You have people who have histories of drug cases for whatever reason, not generally dealers. These people can be stuck in jail pre-trial. These are people whose bonds are going to be higher because they have histories. They have histories of, not killing, not necessarily robbing, but violating laws that were felonies, that are part of the machine that just rotates through court. And that's your domestics, your drugs, your alcohol, things like that. These people's bonds can go high. They can be astronomical. It depends. It depends on their history and their charges. And these people can be stuck pre-trial. Now, these people can work. They work. They actually have lives. It was his wife that he got in a fight with. That's not the problem. The problem is they don't work at a level to afford the history and the charge. Now, you would hope that people would learn and not get here. But if the system's problem is that they don't have any way to handle them pre-trial, and they have to find ways to let them go pre-trial, the system has to choose. Is it going to choose accountable or unaccountable? And when a system has no choice, it will choose the only one it has. And at this point in America, the leading provider of services to the criminal justice system pre-trial, for people stuck pre-trial because their bonds are too high and they cannot afford them, is nonprofit, unaccountable, nonprofit, taxpayer-funded, unaccountable third parties that have come in and told the court that it can do a job for a fee that would determine a person's risk to reoffend or fail to appear. But they haven't brought a single thing to prove they can do that. But that's not the point. That's a whole nother point. At this point, the discussion is, how did they get in? What are they doing here? How are they here? What are they doing while they're here? The pretrial supervision discussion right now is accountable versus unaccountable. And accountable includes one of the oldest industries in America. And it's a misunderstood industry that most people don't truly understand the nature, and when I say the nature, the business of the commercial surety agent. Most people know them as the bail bond agent, but their true name is the commercial surety or surety agent, because they're not all commercial. Some can be property or professional. The purpose of the surety agent is there a level of supervision or a level of security as it relates to release pre-trial. They're not the first level. They're a level that is put in place when a person gets to a point where that's what's required. There comes a point where it can't be their word, because you only have your word in your property, and you have to not only protect the right of the person who is accused to be released, but you must protect society as well from an accused. There is a preponderance of guilt factor that weighs on a judge's decision when it comes to setting bail. And you can't ever take that away. If you just create these mathematical equations These equations aren't designed to handle Ted Bundy. And you can't allow a system that allows side rules. I mean, what they suggest, if you look, and this is going to go off track a little, but if you look at what's happened in New Jersey, in the state of New Jersey, they have literally passed a constitutional amendment that just voided the 8th Amendment of the United States Constitution. You can't do that. In the state of New Jersey, because they've given the privilege to the court to decide, you can be held indefinitely without bail. And it's hard to decipher exactly what action you have to defend yourself when you get caught in this system. This system where it's either release, which is still defined as bail, but they want to get rid of the financial part of it, which, by the way, is the responsibility part. Any other part, if there's no financial obligation by the accused, and remember, this is at the level of felonies, this is at the level of people who have the type of charges and the type of history that they can't just be let go, that they must have a bond, whether it be domestic violence or felony drugs or robbery or violence or whatever. The level of bail is set based on the level of crime and your level of history. So when you talk about getting rid of money bail, that's misleading, because it's not getting rid of it. They're diverting it to a different direction. They're having it collected no longer as a premium on insurance, but as a fee in bureaucracy, because they ingrain themselves. They become part of it. That's their whole mission in life. They start as activists. They become taxpayer-funded nonprofits. They turn into bureaucracies, and that's the fast track. They're grant-driven. They come into the city providing a risk assessment instrument, which is a mathematical equation, which is the simplest definition, but it's a mathematical equation. It's a logic program created by somebody, okay? And they use this to decipher a person's risk to reoffend or to fail to appear. But they don't at all in any measure provide a solution if they're wrong. So with that makes them completely and wholly unaccountable. They have no power to arrest. They have no power to do anything except go to the judge and tell the judge that there is a problem and that we need a solution. We need a warrant. We need the police to go handle something. So at the end of the day, they're a very passive style of supervision. They can basically report to the court. They can tell the court something, and then the court has to go back to what it normally does. It really didn't need them to do that, and they're kind of expensive for what they do, but in a nutshell, that's what they do. And there's nothing they can really do when it goes wrong. In this accountable version, there's only one true form, and that's a financial form. That's a person who actually puts something in it. That can be mom putting up her house. That could be mom and dad and grandpa and grandma, whoever, putting cash up with the court. That could be people getting a portion of the bond and going to a bail bonds company and buying a bail bond, paying a premium, which is a percentage, and the bail bond insures the rest with the guarantee that if the person bonded out fails to appear, they're going to bring them back physically. They don't go tell the judge. In fact, the bail bondsman is regulated, licensed. They're completely educated by the state, regulated by the state, licensed by the state. They're required to do things by law because every step of the failure to appear is dictated by law. And it requires the surety to go all the way to the extreme of arrest if necessary. So they're the true form of accountable pretrial release, because they don't cost a penny to the taxpayer. Naturally, it's funded by the offender. And the only people, by nature, the only people designed to go into the bail industry are those who have exceeded their word. The ones who have a requirement to use something more than just their word. So the bail bonds industry has always served a huge role in criminal justice, and it's the accountable part. So commercial bail does its job, and it sits back and it sees these groups, the Vera Institute, CJI, PJI, Pretrial Justice Institute, and now this new Equal Justice Under Law group that come in and they profess this: all people are stuck in jail pretrial because they're poor and can't afford their bond. Well, I mean, it's a statement designed to get Chris Christie's amendment passed, to get something like that pushed through. But it's not the truth. It's a definite misleading statement. Of course, when you have a $50,000 or $100,000 or $200,000 bond based on your charges and your history, those are tough to make. That's a lot of money. And in many cases, families can't do it. But the courts have gotten themselves to a position with this person that they can no longer just keep helping them. So if the courts have options, they need to use them. And that's where the judge gets caught. Because the judge can't just choose. The judge can't just use his head. He can't just decide, because he has something on the other side forcing him, and it's jail capacity. The overcrowded jails are where these unaccountable providers of pretrial release live. That's where they thrive. That's where they work. That's what they do. They work in it. And that's called the 66%, because that's their name. That's what they call it. 66% of America's jails are housing 66% of America's jails capacity is filled with people being held pretrial. People being held pretrial with bonds that they can't afford. And that is true. That's 100% true. The problem is, the discussion is, who should be doing those people? Who should be taking care of those people? And right now, bail doesn't take care of them, because they're not people that bail can help. The bail has talked to them, but their bonds exceed their capacity to get out. Their family can't help them. Their histories, their charges have made it impossible. If the courts need a solution to that problem, then there's only one group of people that can provide that answer, and it is bail. Bail has to have a discussion with the court. It has to have an ability to provide the court what it needs. And generally the court wants more security, more assistance, more of a promise. And there's a lot of opportunities for bail to do those things, and the courts are willing. But right now, the people, strangely enough, the ones doing it are the unaccountable providers, the Veras, the PJIs, the CJIs. They've gotten in, they have meetings, they discuss. They're working with, and they've convinced. And it makes no sense, because at the end of the day, they are not accountable. They have never been accountable. They never will be accountable. They talk about free. It shouldn't be no money bail. Representative Ted Lieu, 33rd District out of California. The No Money Bail Act of 2016, promoted by Color of Change and ACLU and, of course, Pretrial Justice Institute, PJI. All about people stuck in jail pretrial because they're too poor. Well, it's just not true. First, and I'm not saying the part about not having the money, that these guys claim that that's not fair. You shouldn't have to pay. Hold it. There isn't a single program these guys run that's free. And they charge the defendant. They absolutely charge the defendant. They charge them. They have their own. You can go to the pretrial supervision discussion page. You can look at the videos. You can watch the videos and see the VEER Institute talk about. On one hand, you cannot impose these certain restrictions. Go to school, get a job, stay off drugs, go to treatment, counseling. But then 5 paragraphs later, in the same exact discussion, in the same microphone, she talks about how they provide those programs. But it's not okay. It's unconstitutional for the court to make it happen, but they do it. That's what they do. When they come to us, that's what we do. And there is a fee. They charge people a fee. They absolutely mislead with the understanding that there's anything they provide to court that's even close to accountable. And the thing is, the court knows it. The court gets it. They know this. But they don't have an answer. They don't have a solution. They still have a problem. Overcrowded jails. And look, we can have a whole conversation on why the jail is overcrowded. Again, that's another topic. But we have overcrowded jails. And the judge is not able to decide based on what he wants. He has to decide based on capacity. Until we solve that problem, this discussion will continue. But I believe that there's only one truly accountable group, truly accountable form of pretrial release supervision out there, and it is the American surety agent.